People are like, "You're still doing comedy?" Yes. Yes, I am. I was asking the same thing about your 21-year-old ass.
Right, yeah.
Are you still doing comedy? Geez, can't you give it up? No, I can't.
I mean, but why would you though? I mean, to do comedy, all you have to do is tell jokes in front of people.
That's it.
So the minute you're doing that and you're having a good time, you're successful.
Yeah. Thank
You know?
you. I'll travel anywhere to do 5 minutes to 20, 30 if you have to. I mean, I don't, like I can push it. Sure, I can put
Yeah,
if I got a good crowd, I can push it.
yeah, yeah.
But that's where I'm at. Where are you at with your comedy? We started talking before the intro.
Oh
What?
yeah, yeah.
How
I
many
was waiting
hours
for
have
that.
you got?
Oh, hours, man. I've never counted hours, but it's been off and on about 14 years, but not consistently like pushing, pushing, pushing. It's just been like a few years consistent, and then a few years focusing on some other type of business, and then oh, I miss comedy, and I come back in. But recently, it's been consistent. Like within the last 3 years or so, I've been like staying in it, and I'm starting to get some momentum. I'm starting to get like to know what I want out of it and where I got to go, and that kind of thing.
I've been noticing. I've been watching you.
Yeah, yeah. I watch you too. That's why I say I know you travel a lot because you're always at the airport, popping here, popping there. That's what I'm trying to transition more into, getting out and like traveling, like especially like events that are large. Like I don't know so much about the military type of events, but maybe like community based events, recreational things, of that nature. Just kind of like showing up and speaking in front of large groups of people and stuff like that. That not just in Maryland, where I am now, but in different states.
You know, you don't have to be military to do military gigs. You
Oh
just
yeah.
have to be funny. And they have a place, I'll send you the link if you remind me. Um, every single community in the United States has a yearly big community thing for veterans and military, all branches. And it's a great big opportunity to get in front of a lot of people, and they have a
Yeah.
budget.
They have a budget.
Yeah,
That's always good.
that's a plus. That's a plus.
That's
Drink
always
tickets
good.
can only go so far. Your liver's gonna give out.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's that thin line between like I'm doing it because, well, of course I'm doing it because I love it, but if I want the luxury of doing it, it should be paying for my lifestyle. You know what I mean? That's
Exactly.
that's the mentality that I'm kind of switching to. I'm like, okay, if you want to be this guy, then you better make sure that it's covering things in your life. Like it's taking care of some bills, it's taking care of your responsibilities. Not just fighting between doing some other type of 9 to 5 and then like Clark Kent, taking the glasses off and then running out in the night and trying to be a comedian. Like that's not a lot of comedians are in that position, and I think that's what like burns you out because you know that I got to go back to work tomorrow, and sometimes people at your job might not take you seriously. You're like, I'm gonna be on TV. I'm gonna have my own special, and they're like, yeah, all right, yeah, hand me that dishwater right there. Hand me that soap over there. And
You know, like when you start taking it seriously, like you are, you get a lot of haters that come along acting like, oh, yeah, you think you're so hot, don't you?
yeah, it's not as much like that they verbalize it. It's more a pull back. It's like they'll pull back from support, like pull back from liking things, pull back from saying things, pull back from like showing up to things. You know what I mean? But
That
that's always been so weird to me. I never really understood that because I've always been like a guy that roots for everybody. Like even when like where we at the motor house, I host down there, and I haven't always hosted. I'm co-hosting now, and a lot of comedians there that some of them are new. Some of them just last Wednesday we had a guy. It was his first night. Um, a guy had just did his first night 2 months ago. So you see him come in and you see him, and when they look at us and they see that, oh, you guys are like kind of polished and you're coming in, you're ready to do your thing and you're getting laughs and stuff. Sometimes that can be a little intimidating to them because they're like writing and showing like the vulnerability of this is what I thought was going to work. And if it doesn't work, then it's like, oh, do you think I'm stupid? Do you think I'm an idiot? Do you think I should? So I'm always the guy that's like encouraging everybody and like, hey, good job. Or I mean, I won't lie to you. If it was terrible, I'm not going to tell you, hey, you killed it. But but I will say, hey, like maybe try, such and such, and they seem to kind of come toward me and want that advice. I don't just force it on people, you know what I mean? But if they ask me, I'll say, hey, this is what I think, And yeah, so I never understood the whole like hating thing or the whole like, to me, it's like nobody can be you, even the hater, whoever the hater is, nobody can be that hater. Like nobody can be that guy or that girl. So you kind of already own a commodity that nobody else can have. Like nobody else can be Alejandro Labrada, Mr. Yellow Shakes. Like I've taken that. That's mine now. So regardless who likes me or doesn't like me, I own this brand. I own this commodity. You know what I mean?
yeah.
And I think that's what people don't like. It's like, oh, you have something that you can tangibly see and feel and own, and it's like they haven't like found their thing yet. But I'm saying it's there. Everybody has it.
Everybody.
Everybody has it if they
It's
look
like your
for it.
fingerprint.
Right.
Go
Exactly.
find it.
Exactly.
Do some work and quit being jealous. Go find your fingerprint.
That's the whole thing. Because I had to do that. It's a whole bunch of people that's way more successful. You know, obviously, because nobody knows who I am. There's a whole bunch of comedians who are way more successful than me, but I don't sit around like, oh, I wish that or this person doesn't deserve that, or this person. I've seen people pass me, like people who I've seen in the local scene, met them through the local scene, and then they went from the local scene to like TV or some kind of show or some type of tour situation. I don't, I'm always like, hey, I'm so go. Like, I'm proud of you, get work. I'm liking their stuff. I'm liking their pictures. If they got a one-man show that's coming up and they're trying to promote it, I share it on my page,
Thank
you
you. Me
know,
too.
because it's like, I want the same thing for me as I want for you. It's like, it doesn't cost me anything to do that. And it doesn't make me not funny.
Yeah, it
You know
doesn't
what I'm
take,
saying?
and actually, there's a lot of people in the business that are sharing things or helping each other with a ulterior motive. They're giving to get. And if you're giving to get, you ain't giving.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Give.
I see. My thing is, I'm so overwhelmingly confident in what I'm doing and who I am that I'm genuinely like saying I like what you're doing. That's genuine. If I'm doing that, it's like yes, because I'm not asking for any favors. Like I don't, it's like, or if I like this 79 more times, I'll get those tickets. You know what I mean? Like I'm not I'm not doing that. You know what I mean? I'm just like, hey, like I'm in the same, but we're all in the same boat, no matter what level we're on. We're trying to hold it together because we're all human beings. It takes a while. I know you got to get your hair right. And when you wake up in the morning, it's not looking like, all shaped like that. You gotta do your thing. You gotta, slide down the pole and come out like Batman, but it takes an effort to do that every day instead of saying like, well, the heck with it. I'm tired of this. Nobody's really following me. Like maybe I'm kidding myself. I can do this and make some money and maybe I'll just do that when I like, like you could give up on it and be that. But anybody who's saying no, I'm not going to give up. I'm going to keep this. I like those people. You know, I root for those kind of people. You know.
Yes. So what is it that I didn't do your intro? I posted it. Will you be mad at me if I skip past the intro? We're already way past
No,
it.
no, no. Let's go. I mean, let's go. It's up there. They'll you know.
It's up there. Tell me, I know this is the like most basic rudimentary thing out there. Why did you tell me why you started comedy? What was the catalyst?
Um. Okay, so there are a couple of factors, but I know it was around the time that I was between 11 and 13, because during that time was when I really started to pay attention to sitcoms and TV. And I used to really like those, like Carol Burnett. You know, your parents are like watching Carol Burnett and these variety shows and stuff like that, which was always funny. And you know, hee haw, you know, laughing and all this kind of stuff, you know. And then at night, if you had HBO, if you were fortunate enough to have HBO, you could see Benny Hill when your parents are asleep, you know, late at night, like 2 in the morning, you know. So that, and then I saw so those things like the TV and the TV comedians that I saw, and then I saw a copy of Eddie Murphy's Delirious when I was staying at my cousin's house. Like my uncle had a copy of it on VHS, and I definitely was not like really. I guess I wasn't old enough to watch it because I wasn't 16, but it was like the funniest thing I ever seen. I was cracking up, like I'm rolling on the floor. I'm just like, yo, this is crazy. Like he's talking about Mr. T being gay. He's talking about all, you know, the ice cream, chasing the ice cream truck, and his aunt falling down the steps, and his uncle setting his brother on fire at the cookout. And but the way he's telling all these stories, I'm just like, man, this is so awesome. So I think like that was when I saw that the actual demo. That was the first demonstration I saw of it from start to finish, like introducing somebody, them coming out and doing their whole 45 minutes, whole hour, whatever, and then saying, thank you, good night. That was like the first one. And I was very impressionable because I was already into TV and I was already funny, you know, like to laugh, that kind of thing. So yeah, that was around that time. And then after that, I watched everything I could on HBO that was standing, like all the one night stands, you know, all the old school stuff. Rita Rutner, Elaine Boozler, Billy Crystal, you know, Howie Mandel, like all the whatever was whoever was on there. I watched it. I watched the Robert Townsend's Partners in Crime. Whenever he would have a new volume up, I watched that. Like so I was kind of like, okay, anything I can get that's comedy, I'm watching it. And aside from that, I was into cartoons. I could, you know, I'm a visual artist, so I drew a lot of cartoons. I watched a lot of Bugs Bunny and Woody Woodpecker, and you know, you get the rhythm of like a character that's kind of like rebellious, got some wisecracks going on, like ahead of the curve. Every once in a while, he gets in deep over his head, but you know, it's going to work out some kind of way at the end. So it centers on like a coolness, like there's a coolness about those kind of characters. You know what I mean? Like Heathcliff. I don't know if you know you ever watched that.
Yep.
And you know, it's like gets in trouble, wisecrack, you know, but his coolness kind of like levels it out at the end. It's like, all right, you know, you're gonna be all right, you know. So all those kind of characters is like, hey, I like that, you know.
Living or dead, whose comedy influenced you the most in your life? Not your comedy, but whose comedy influenced you in some other, you know, like you're not a carbon copy of anybody.
Right.
I can't imagine that. But I've read your intro. I just was wondering, of all the comedians out there, who touched your heart the most or made you go from being attracted to comedy to committed to it? Who helped? Who really made stuff gel for you?
Man, I honestly can't even like name one. I can say, okay, I can I guess it's levels. So because they all teach me something, but Red Fox is my favorite comedian.
Me too.
Number one, like sit him at the top, as far as like, yes, I watch him. I like it. And he did a lot of performing in Baltimore too, like history of the city I live in, along Penn North through the Chitlin circuit. He did a lot of comedy there. And there are some photos of that. There's also some written history on that, but that was part of his upbringing. And so that's my favorite. But then there are other comedians who accomplish things in different ways, like Flip Wilson, for the time that he came up to have his own television show in America where we're still facing a lot of racism and a lot of like issues with,
I
segregation and stuff like
love that show so much.
yeah, and he was just his likability for the audience and how he kind of like rode that line of like, okay, we can all laugh. I'm going to throw some humor in there that's a little off color, but not so much that I'm being ignorant about it, and I'm not going to be too, upscale or, that I'm being phony to what's really going on. So it's like he kind of balanced that energy, you know what I mean? So I like that. That was a big influence too, because I used to watch that growing up.
That was a big deal for a person of color back then to have their own show.
Yeah, huge.
Huge.
A huge deal. I mean, there wasn't anything else like that, and it was what they call it. Like he got a lot of flack from the like African American community. Some of the more what we would call nowadays the woke community would be like, back then that would be like the woke community. Like, oh, you're dressing in drag, and you're doing this Geraldine character. You're setting the black man back, and Um, so he had to deal with that too. Like even like as an entertainer, like Sammy Davis Jr. wasn't a comedian, but he's like one of my top a top entertainment or entertainer personas. What he had to deal with to be with the Rat Pack and to like be the black guy and the black Jewish guy when all these Italians and all these Irish and all these, who's his Spade, who's black, and be short on top of that and have one eye. It's like how many more strikes and to take all of that and still like be one of the most talented guys in the group, and hold his own all those years and leave a legacy like he did. Like we whine so easily about the stuff that we deal with now. I see people online saying stuff about performing or this and that. I'm just like, if you had to deal with half the stuff that he had to put up with, for just an example, just him, for example, you might not be complaining about these things that you're talking about now.
Well, a lot of black entertainers weren't even allowed to go in the front door of places they performed in.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
I know I'm right now preaching to the choir by saying it to you. I guess I feel very entitled to be able to tell you something about your own group of people.
No, you're just quoting facts. You know what I mean?
Yes, yes.
That is an absolute fact. And that was another thing. It's like you had to go through that. So I'm just appreciative to do it now. But what I see, there's like a different, because of the internet and because of like I say, I came up in like looking at cable specials and trying to catch comedy on TV whenever I could. And the only other way you could see it was to go to an actual show. You couldn't go on your phone and see comedy. It was like, all right, either cable's showing you comedy or you going out to see it. So it was very exclusive. And now with everybody having their own channel, which would mean like what 80 million people with 79 million, whoever got phones. Okay, so maybe 63 million people have their own channel. And out of those people, there are millions of the comedians, and they're trying to get on stage, and because they have followers, they may be invited to get on stage and say, hey, you got a lot of followers, why don't you, come do this show? but that doesn't always translate to somebody who actually like really loves comedy and the craft of it and the school of it, and know, and I don't down people who have like a high percentage rate of followers on the internet, or who have gotten a success. However you got it, that's great. You know what I mean? I'm not hating on it. I hope that it keeps working for you for 100 years. If that's what you want to do. But I have like a really high respect for comedians, like the crap, like thinking of a joke, a premise. How can I say this without saying it, and then the audience still knows what I'm saying? Or how can I misdirect the crowd? How can I use this opportunity to make a joke out of what this guy just yelled out? How can I, like all those little things, not just like something goofy I'm doing online and I'm splashing water on my uncle while he's sleeping. I'm like, yeah, like that's, I mean, like really using it, using this,
Yes,
like
absolutely.
that's what I'm a fan of,
Me too. I saw a comedy club that will go nameless in the last 6 months had a line wrapped around the block to see a show. I never heard of this person. So I bought a ticket and I went and watched. And I would say 85% of the people laughed maybe once in an hour and a half because
Once not, wow.
it's not comedy, it's TikTok.
Yeah, it's different. It's a different animal, like you're in comedy and stand-up comedy. Before we can get to the laugh, it's about connecting with the audience. So even when you're writing your material, you're writing it in a way that I'm going to deliver this in a conversational way. That first I have to make friends with them. I have to bring them in enough to make friends with them, and then say these things in a way that they'll maybe laugh at this or what I would think is funny. But it's not being funny, like trying to be funny or shaking around. Like I know some comedians who they wiggle the whole time they work. Like you know what I mean? Because look, I'm not trying to hear none of that. You know what I mean? So if the jokes don't work, maybe the way my head is wiggling will give you a chuckle. If that's how you want to work, then that's fine. I'm not saying don't wiggle. I'm not anti wiggle for the politically. I'm not anti wiggle group. I'm just. I just try to stand very still. No, no, but I just think it's like, I think it's more sexy when it's like, oh man, you took me through a whole bunch of little layers right there of what you said. It was unexpected and it was funny. Then it was like, pal. Then you had a call back. Then you did something, like you thought this thing out. You took this jacket from a pattern, to choosing out the material, to you know, putting it together, putting the first fitting on to see where you got to tighten it up. You stitched it, and now it's this beautiful suit. It's not, I just grabbed this off the rack and I'm going to do the most popular dance that's out right now in this jet. You know what I mean? It's
That's
not the
it.
same, you know?
Yeah. Like, if Tiger Woods got up there to golf and he used the same strategy as wiggling, doing some kind of schmaltzy thing to get people to like him, that it has nothing to do with who he is. He's just doing it. Like just be
Right.
yourself. I think people will, what I'd like to get your take on this, Alejandro. Um, they say in comedy that the the deeper you dig into a subject, that the more relatable you become. And that blows my mind because I'm from the 50s. I know, shocker, but I'm from the 50s. And it seems like it should be the opposite, that the more you get into yourself, the more you lose people. So, do you have anything to tell me about this phenomenon?
That is, I do understand what that is, and that's something that I am always trying to fight with, like the more that you dig into it, the further you get into truth. So I guess the key word in the whole idea is truth, because truth is not, it's not something that you can create out of thin air. Truth is something that everybody can qualify as, yes, that is so, or I have, also experienced that. So if anybody could say, I used to have to come, for instance, if somebody could say, I used to have to come home before the street lights got on, when the street lights got on, I knew I had to get in the house, right? That's the truth for that person, but it's the truth for millions of other people. You know what I mean? So when he tells that joke, when he talks about it, it's like a million other people like, yeah, I remember I had to, So the humor comes in them being able to relate to the emotions behind what you're talking about. For them to connect, to the emotions behind what you're talking about, it has to be truth. For it to be not just a shallow concept, which could be kind of corny to some degree if you just stay on the surface and you just kind of chip the flakes off the top, and just take what you get and run back and say, hey, what about this? You can get by with that, but the further you get deep into the vulnerability, and it's like, oh, I don't know if I really want to go there, or I look too cool to admit that I used to do this, or I never did, you know what I mean? That's the stuff, that's the meat. That's what people want, because all of us have those rooms that we keep from other people. We all got our own room. And it's like everybody is saying, you show me yours first. You see what I'm saying?
It's like when we used to play doctor.
Right. So it's like somebody has to be brave enough to do it. The comedian has to be brave enough to say, okay, I'll show you mine first. I'm going to open this terrible door, stand back. There's going to be a lot of stuff falling out of here. Just back, And then people can look and say, oh, it's a release of tension, because they're going to see a lot of things fall out that's in their closet.
Got it.
I'm like, oh, I got that boot too. I got that, oh, I don't got that. But, that's what it is. It's there are things in our subconscious, or things that, our subconscious is always collecting and it's always creating like who we are. But it's not on the surface. It's in those questions that we really don't want to ask. It's in that deep-rooted stuff about your childhood, about your relationships, things that you could have done better, things that you didn't understand, whatever. Stuff that's not going to make you look cool, because we live in an age where everybody's like, man, I gotta look cool. I don't want to get too personal. And you got to be brave enough to say, you know what? Okay, I look cool, but I also used to wet the bed. I mean, I wasn't one of those guys, I had a cousin who was infamous for it. He's, but those kind of things, it's like, oh, okay, I can relate to that. And if you make it funny, like, okay, so you're talking about that, and then you have a funny way to talk about what that was, that's clever or misleading or whatever, then it's the truth mixed with a thought out system of, telling it, a thought out rhythm. You got a thought out rhythm around a real truth.
Got it. That's beautiful.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Then people's like, oh, they can laugh at it and they feel comfortable because they know you're not lying to them.
Yes. Don't you hate it when you're watching? I don't ever want to say don't you hate people who, but don't you hate it when you're watching someone who hasn't evolved and they're up there lying?
I can almost say I hate it. I can say I very highly dislike it. I won't say I hate it, but I know what you meant when you said that. It's very discomforting, because but that comes from, because how much you want to put into it. Like you know what I mean? Like there are some other comedians who wouldn't even notice that.
Yeah, that's true.
Who would just be like, hey, I'm just saying, he's doing a set, whatever. Only somebody who really tries to be honest can hear when somebody else is full of BS,
Yeah, yeah. Like one thing I've noticed is men doing comedy, they They
Uh-oh.
will lie about their status, and they don't even know that they're letting the audience in on the lie. They'll say, give it up for me. I've been married 25 years, so I'm on Mingle or
Oh,
Tingle.
right, right.
It's like, which is it? You just
Yeah,
losing your likability because you're not truth. Either you're a player and you should say it, and then I'm
right.
on board, or you're either married or you're single. Which is it? Don't blow my
Yeah.
mind.
Yeah, because that's really risky. If you were on Mingle and married and you're on stage telling everybody, like, I mean, your wife must never see you do stand up, like you give her some sleeping pills every night and then you sneak out like or something. I don't know what it is. But but
I look,
um no,
you go.
I think I think that I don't like that, when you look at the great comedians or like I like a lot of like Louis Anderson, for instance, right? Louis Anderson would always talk about growing up with his brothers and sisters, how his dad was like this grouchy kind of like, very sullen type of guy, didn't have a lot of patience, would click his gun, would never shoot it, but would always give you the little, you like, I've had enough, when his mother was really kind of like ditzy, cooking too much food and, shopping at little nifty places that he would have to get dragged to. And when he talks about like that kind of stuff, I see bits of my childhood in that because I remember like going to thrift stores with my mother when I was a kid. I remember like playing throwing. He had a joke about getting hit in the ear with a snowball that has ice in it. Like when you pack ice in a snowball and and getting hit in the ear with that, and then he said you're limping. He's like, why are you limping even though you only got hit in the ear? It's like the whole. And I remember that like getting hit in the head with something and then like limping and crying like that. So that when you stick with the truth, it's always so like I could 20 years I can always watch that any of his specials and laugh the same way like every time, because it wasn't a lie to begin with.
Yes.
That's like building something out of like brick and mortar and putting a brass plaque on a corner like established. That's what you're doing when you're telling the truth.
Wow.
You know,
It's so
you know,
important.
that's what I mean. That's what I try to stick with that.
There's another thing, a facet of comedy I'd like to explore with you, since you're so intelligent and easy to talk to.
Oh,
When you're on stage, I think that, no, I'm not trying to be judgmental, I'm just saying what I see. Um, some comics or comedians make the audience tense up and others relax the audience. Do you want to explore that phenomenon with me? Do
okay.
you know, like for instance, I'm not very threatening when I go on stage. I'm older, I make fun of how the world used to be, and I purposely misunderstand the new world.
Right.
And
Okay.
so I'm no threat. So they're relaxed. So I'm since I've come on board with this new persona that is very much how I see the world, but I didn't know I could do it on stage. The audience is relaxed and they're able to really laugh because they know it's the truth, and it's a relaxing thing for them to hear. Like in the world of craziness out there, they I guess they just want to come and have somebody do raspberries on stage for 15 minutes right now and not offend them. And it's not difficult to get good laughs if they're not feeling threatened personally, or so
Yeah.
like I've seen a lot of comedians where people's sphincters tighten up because they're not sure they feel safe. I think
Yeah.
that's it. Can you
Yeah.
talk about
I've seen some comedians like we do like with any open mic, you're going to get a lot of different personalities, and there are some comedians who we know, like before they even get up there, we know they're going to tense everybody up. So it's like we schedule them between like two funny people, like a sandwich. Like, all right, we put this piece of brown swaggered in the middle, that nobody's gonna like, you know, but we still want to give them their time, because we got respect for you saying you want to do it. So, but I was gonna say that those comedians, some of them it's hard to tell if they're telling the truth all the way through or if they're not. Some of them, I believe they are telling the truth, but then there are different types of ways that you can deliver material. Like you can have what we call self-deprecating truth, where you're doing a lot of talking about your shortcomings, your things that you find funny about yourself, and you're sharing that with everybody. Or you can have the type of humor like the court jester who makes fun of the politicians or the Senate and the people in charge and how they walk and how they talk and the stupid things that they say. And that still be your truth, but you're not putting yourself out there really. You're just kind of saying, this is what's stupid with the world. This is what's screwed up with the world. There's certain comedians like that. And then there's certain comedians that's like, man, I'm so screwed up, and I don't feel normal in this world. So those two types of truths, and I think the ones that tend to be on the side of pointing outward have an easier time tensing up the audience, because then you get into political division. You get into, I don't agree with you, I actually like that person that you're talking about, or that's where you kind of like tipping on, but I've seen people do it just like Bill Burr, for instance, even though he does have some jokes about himself, if he gets to talking about things that he finds stupid on television or, political things, the masterful way in which he says these things is what's hilarious. So if you're good enough to write like that, to write on that level, you say whatever you want, but you can't say whatever you want and not be masterful.
Right. Thank you.
You know what I mean? Because then it just sounds like you're venting, and you always got to keep the comedian hat on.
Tell me why. I want to know something. Tell me why. I'm a boomer. I come from the era before Don Rickles, when people did not make fun of other people. And now, even with the Me Too and the cancel culture, even with that, so many comedians are making fun of other groups they're not a part of. And
Right.
I just don't understand, why do people think that's okay?
Now, I think that making fun of groups that you're not a part of is an essential element of comedy, and I'm just to be honest, right?
Okay, I want your honest. Yeah.
Because that's kind of like going back to the court jester. His thing was, hey, I'm not a part of the upper crust who walk around with their shrimp cocktail like this, and then he does the little walk, and then everybody's laughing. Oh, they do walk like that. That was kind of what he was doing, and so that's an integral part of the whole thing. When it gets mean spirited, when it gets degrading, when it gets vulgar, and you start saying things and calling people things that they don't want you to call them, then that's when I have an issue with it.
Got it.
I've heard people do gay jokes that were funny gay jokes, not because they were making fun of gay people, but because they were maybe having a conversation with somebody who was gay, and the sass of the person who was gay was overwhelming the person that they were talking to. You know what I mean? That's funny to me. You know what I mean? Because I've seen some very flamboyant, gay people. And I know we have friends in our community who are gay comedians who are hilarious, and they'll get up themselves and make fun of themselves and their childhood and coming out to their parents and what their parents expect of them as their adults, and when they go on trips, what their parents think they're going to be doing while they're away and what they're really doing, and all. it's hilarious. So if I can laugh at what you're saying, then I can laugh at the subject. It's just in which way was it delivered and who was it intended to hurt, or if it was if it was intended to hurt somebody, then no, we're not with that.
Yeah.
But if you're sharing an experience and one of the characters in it was gay, then that's just what it was. Like you can't rewrite history,
Well,
you know.
I'm half Jewish and I'm the wrong half Jewish. And I've been carrying the Jew torch my whole life and for no reason at all because the Jews don't accept me. And I go to the mic with this grudge on my shoulder because I'm mad at myself for being, bamboozled for 73 years this March. And a comic goes on stage and says, I hate the Jews. And
Wow.
everybody in the room is dying laughing at those words. And so now I'm wondering, am I at a rally of some kind? And he goes, well, I hate the Jews. Well, I just hate the Jews, because I hate the Jews. And now they're laughing again. And I feel like walking out of the room and I'm not even accepted by the Jews.
Right. That is that I don't even understand what kind of room that was for that to just be fun. Like that guy, for that to be funny, he had to be standing there with a yarmulke and side locks. You know what I mean? For that to be funny to me, you know. But I couldn't imagine anybody who doesn't look like that getting away with that. You know, that's crazy. That's crazy.
I hate hate speech.
Yeah.
And or when underneath it, it's their way of using the microphone to spread hate.
Right. You can tell it's like, and I think that goes back to what we were saying, the comics will create tension in the room because that's what they are. They're just tense people. They're walking around with these lumps in their back, hunched over, computer, anger, with the people think that the world is so much bigger than them and that they have no control over what their life experiences is going to be. This large group of people are making the world this way. So I'm a victim of what these people are doing over here. And then we got these people there to keep talking about this, and now we got to do this, and I can't, my life is like this now. And those are the kind of people who are going to have all this tension and all because they think the world dictates who they are, what they're going to be, and all, and the groups that are larger than them dictate what we're going to be. Wow. But truthfully, if you look into being grateful, like just within yourself, and you do try to maximize, like we were saying, like find your own, just like a thumbprint, find your own brand, your own persona, your own voice, and you just kind of like find an inner peace, like a happiness with who you are. Like I'm still alive. Like there's a lot of things that could have killed me. Like even me, like I could have drowned when I was like 13 from swimming in a creek during a like storm. It was like a rainstorm. And we all jumping in, splashing, swimming. I almost drowned, and one of the other kids saved me. That could have been it then, So for me to just be like, hey, I'm here. I get to get on stage. I get, it's like, what do I have to complain about? There are comedians who were on the stage yesterday that are not on stage that have passed away. Like I've seen even a couple of my friends who are just in the last couple of years who were comedians are gone now.
Yes.
And I'm still here. So it's like, okay, well, dare I complain that I'm still able to be here and do this? So now it's just like I just offer the best I have to it because I don't know when my number, So it's like when you have that kind of attitude where I'm just going to offer the game the best I have because I'm grateful that I'm in it, that I have the opportunity to speak on this platform. I love the fact that people came before me and kind of laid it out for me. So I'm going to study what they did. I'm going to look at what they did. I'm going to see what, and I'm going to come up with my own. It's a whole system with me. It's a whole world within itself to me. And I'm just paying my respects to it. And I just want to be counted. I just want to be counted as one among them. I just want to be able to say, oh yeah, you remember Yellow Shade? Oh yeah, Yellow Shade is one of us. Like I don't have to be like the top, I do want to be the funniest man in the room. but I understand that I'm not always going to be the funniest man in the room.
That's
So,
important.
so if I'm not the funniest man in the room, I don't look at myself and say I'm a failure, or oh, he killed it, and tonight I shouldn't even. It just wasn't my night, or it was just his night, or it was just whatever it was. But I know I'm doing what it is I'm supposed to be doing.
I had a discussion with a comedian last night, and his opinion is you don't read the room and you don't change your material for nobody. And my opinion, you know how the opinions are, my opinion is you read the room, you change your material, and talk about that for a minute.
I would tend to agree with you in a sense. Yeah, I would agree with you. It depends on the level. It depends on the material. Now, if somebody has been doing it, like let's say like a Seinfeld, who's been doing it so long and has been chopping away the weakest 30% of their set and adding the like keeping the better stuff, and just have a system rolling where they got this huge mega ball of just universal material where I can just talk about anywhere, then yeah, maybe you can get away with it. But that's a high bar to say that you're at, where you don't have to consider the type of people you're in front of, you know. And I think that once you get into a room and you see who's there, that's always a part of what I'm going to say. Like sometimes I might go off the cuff and just like talk to the crowd and just try to get some comedy out of, like, the old Steve Allen TV shows. You interview the crowd, they might say something. A lot of times they're going to say something funny because it's the truth. Like they're telling the truth, but the way they say something may have the wording they use may have a way that you can mislead what they're saying, to make a joke out of it, to make the audience think they're really talking about something that they're not talking about. And it's like, no, that's not what I'm talking about. You know what I mean? So it's all these little like opportunities. So reading the room is very important to me. I've gotten, and the reason why I say all that about the improv is because that's happened to me. Like that's happened where I was doing material that I thought was like, okay, this stuff always works. And the audience was chuckling, because it's like, okay, I get it. It's like if you're too good at cards or certain jokes, I'm not saying I'm a great comedian, but I'm saying like certain jokes that always work because you always do it the same way. If you get too good at it, then it doesn't even like entertain anybody, because it's like, it didn't look difficult. You did it too fast. You did it like it was nothing. You didn't make me think about it. You didn't lure me in with the. So sometimes stepping out of that comfort zone of just, I know this is going to work, and just saying, okay, well, I'm going to talk about this painting on the wall, and just kind of throw yourself out there. You're going to take a bid for this painting, and you're going to start off at $500, and just see if that gets a laugh, and then like, oh, nobody, okay. Well, I was just trying to auction it off because the owner said he painted them himself, or whatever, and just kind of feel. I prefer to do that to make it a more organic exchange than just like, hey, I'm just here to read off this paper. That's another thing. Let me ask you a question, if you don't mind. What do you think about comedians who keep their jokes on the stool or keep their phone and they scroll as they're going along? Like, what do you think about that?
All right. Well, I started comedy at 63 with a traumatic brain injury. So my brain hadn't repaired itself 9 years ago to the point where I could do comedy without notes. And even if I would have brought in my psych notes from my doctors, proving I have an ADA approved reason to have notes, there's a large segment of the comedy world that doesn't give a rip and does not want notes. Even if, don't do comedy if you're going to do notes. So I know there's that faction out there, but I couldn't help it. So I was bringing notes and trying any way to make it funny,
Right.
and
There's some
then
people who do that.
and then I don't like being the brain injured comic. That I don't want that. I've got so much more in my life before the brain injury,
Right.
and I don't want an excuse. And so I pushed myself. And I couldn't remember my lines. And so I with my brain injury, if I start trying to be logical rather than humorous, if I'm using the left side of my brain like I'm doing now, then you will see a lag in my communication. You'll see me trying to think, and I'm not in the moment because I'm thinking. And
Right.
that's death for a comedian. So I have to talk myself into almost like a not the left side of the brain. I have to force myself into the right side of the brain when I go on stage, because that forces me in the moment. And if I can be in the moment, anything will come to me and anything will be funny. And I
Right.
don't need notes. But you don't know that between here and there. And you're
Yeah, yeah.
trying to bring them notes, and the audience is looking at the notes going, why are you on stage? Didn't you do your homework?
Right. There is a divide there because it's like what you say about the brain, because I try to do all the hard logical box stacking and organizing during the writing process and memorizing, like, like you write certain jokes and then they have to follow a certain order. So then you might write down a bulletproof or a bullet point list to say, slippery shoes. So that's a slippery shoe bit. Catching the bus bit. Uncle fell asleep. Oh, that's the joke. Okay. So now you're like slippery shoes, caught the bus, uncle fell asleep. That's where my hard work is, and when I'm doing that, like slippery shoes. Once I get on stage, having that running, so now I'm like, okay, slippery shoes. That's it. That's all I'm thinking I'm doing. Now I'm just having fun with the joke. Man, these shoes so slippery. Blah, 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 and my brain is saying, caught the bus. So I was, about to catch the bus the other day, and now I'm just in conversation mode because all the hard work was just in remembering like where I was supposed to be. If I got that running, like did that joke, this is the next bullet point. Now I can just, okay, all right, now I can just do the joke in the moment. I'm not trying to remember the joke, because I have the joke. I know what made it funny and how I need to say it to make it funny. The hard part is just where am I supposed to say it? But to make
Yeah.
that easy, easier, I just do bullet points and I try to remember the rhythm of the bullet points so that when I'm there, I can just relax. I'm kind of like I got like a little guy on the shoulder saying, "Yeah, the next one is the spaghetti joke," and now I'm just spaghetti, you
Three
know.
things three things have helped me with my memory. It's being authentic and being truthful and telling my story with punchlines chronologically. Like, how could I forget the next joke? It's the next thing that happened in my life. I've got these jokes, and I
Yeah,
can't tell you I was born in the 50s as my third joke. It doesn't fit there. It's got to be the first.
yeah, that's a good way. I do something that's close to that. I have a lot of stuff that everything I try to base it on reality, but I guess the difference would be whereas, well, if you're going to say 1950, like I was born in 1950, then you obviously are, you're dating it. Like you're definitely dating it. So, and you're definitely saying this is where it started. Like I was born and, it's like, okay, this is definitely at the beginning. Um, but I think I know that there are certain stories that happen to me and the order of that might switch. Like they're like boxes of like, okay, all the summer camp stuff is in this box. All the going to church forever, is in this, all that stuff is in this box. All this stuff is in this box. And I see the boxes when I'm up there and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna dig into the little summer camp box for a minute and I do some summer camp stuff. And then I might notice some goodies in the church box. So I'm gonna segue from going to camp, some kind of way I'm gonna tie it into, coming home from camp and then having to be ready to go to church in the morning. By the way, speaking of church, I'm in this box now.
Yes.
So I might hop around that way. So it won't be like a certain order, that I'm following chronologically so much. It'll just be like everything is the truth, but you're getting it based on whatever rhythm I'm in, right now,
So I literally say on stage, I was born in the 50s. Then I'll talk about that was when I talk dirt about my hometown because it's funny. It's Portland, Oregon. Give me a break. And then I talk about the 60s when I shoplifted, and the 70s when I went in the military, and and then then getting into comedy and how everybody wanted me to do I had to do sit-ups to get people to listen because my brain was so bad. And then really what they wanted was for me just to do curl ups, like one curl up and die already. I love poking fun at my experiences and me. I just love the Me Too people, the women with the hats and their boyfriends. They hate me.
The
If they're
women
in the
with the
audience, they're like,
hats.
I
The
think
women
it's
with the
funny.
hats. That's funny. That's a movie, like the women with the hats. It's definitely a Hitchcock movie somewhere. Um, no, no, I think honesty is the safety blanket. I don't think we should ever stop being honest. Yeah, because I mean, it's the only thing that you can count on. Everything else is just kind of flaky. Like I was even like I watch a lot of the Dick Van Dyke Show, right?
Me too.
Like almost every day I watch like 3 or 4 episodes. And I was listening to them talk about Carl Reiner, and I was like, okay, let me see if I can find a documentary on Carl Reiner, and he was talking about how he would write the show and how they would try not to use any language that would date the show. Like they
Oh,
wouldn't say groovy or hip
ah,
or far out. You'll never hear far out or any kind of slang or swang, any of that stuff on any episode because they didn't want people in 2023 to be like, oh, that's oh, he said far out and not, you know, feel connected. You can look at that show and feel, even though it's black and white, it could be going on like right now, if you just based on
wow.
the dynamic of a man who's married, who has a small child, who works for a TV company, who has to write jokes, who has to listen to his boss and under pressure sometimes, but also has to manage his household. His wife might call and say, Rob, this is going on at home. And then he has to give her some kind of answer. But then his boss is like, hey, I need that script. And he's trying to be polite enough to his wife to show he still cares about her feelings. But then she's like, why is your job more important right now? This is a catastrophe. And then he has to kind of like get loud a little bit, like, well, look, Laura, I gotta go and I call you later, all right? And then he got to get back to his boss, that's all like real stuff. It's real emotions, it's real pressure, it's real family. And it's hilarious. Like the jokes are funny, the timing, the punchlines, people still
Slapstick, the
it's
slapstick.
slapstick, it's classic dressing. It's there ain't no like the menswear that they're wearing is like the same stuff that we wear today, it's so yeah, I think the cocoon is staying the truth, like to stay in the truth. And I think I took that little tip from Carl to say maybe I shouldn't slang up my jokes too much or say things that I know is like what we're saying now, or he had that drip, because somebody watching 35 years from now and I say, yeah, it had that drip, it might look weird. It might look like a polka dot shirt to them, you know what I'm saying? Instead of the joke that's still funny, So
Yeah,
I try to take little pieces of all that and just
that's
like,
very interesting. I never would have thought of that.
yeah,
That's
that's
a
interesting.
great nugget for people. We're going to transition out of here because we're
Okay.
at an hour, even though we could talk all day. It's been
Yeah, it's
so delightful to
both
talk to
love
you.
it. We both love it, so yeah.
Yes. So would you mind telling people where, in any order you choose, it doesn't have to be chronological, um, if you could please tell people where in the world you're going to perform and where in the world they can find you on the webs that are out there.
Okay. So I'm on IG at Mr. Yellow Shades. That's MR Yellow Shades. I'm going to be next at which I'm at every week. I'm hosting a show called The Art of Comedy. It's at the Motor House, which is on North Avenue in Baltimore. It's at 120 West North Avenue at the corner of North and Howard. Every Wednesday, 9 p.m. Show starts. No entry fee. We got empanadas, we got drinks, we got comedians ready to write and ready to do stuff for you. So it's a good time all the time. I'm working on another show that's going to be featured more around comedians showing up in suits and ties, so like a sharp dress kind of show.
Prom
That's
gowns?
Well, I don't know about prom gowns. I'm not wearing one, but that's another concept that I'm talking to a good friend of mine about. So that's what I'm working on. I don't have any like big dates or anything. To me, the next big date is always the next time I'm in front of the microphone. I'm just like, because we only have now. We only have this moment. So even if you got a show booked in front of 15,000 people 3 months from now, it's not in your possession. It's not a greater investment than the 12 people that's standing right here, right now. That's like, hey, make me laugh right now. You don't look at them and say, oh, it's only 12 people. I got a show at 15,000 in 3 months. I don't need that. That's the wrong attitude, because you don't really have that until you have it.
And once you have it, it's gone.
Right. And it's gone. Right. So to me, it's always wherever I'm at, right then and there, at the line at the grocery store or in front of 100 people. That's the best time to be funny.
Yes, everywhere. Any chance you get.
Yeah. And I commend you for doing the airport. That takes a lot of brass. A lot of people sitting there and wait, people get a lot of frustrations at the airport. And be like, yeah, I see you with your biscotti, but hey, let me talk about this for a second, like that takes a lot, I don't know if I'm brave enough to do that yet. And I see you doing it. I'm like,
come to the airport, we'll go do it.
It sounds like fun.
Oh man, people, anytime there's a waiting room, like where there's a lot of tension, like the airport's perfect for comedy because people are tense. They don't want to fly, or they're saying goodbye to their loved one. They need comedy. And like, I think that there should be a comedian in every cancer waiting room, a cancer doctor. They're going in there to find out their results, or HIV clinic. Holy crap.
Yeah, I mean,
paternity.
That can go, it would be a nightmare to bomb in one of those situations. I would say that, like that. You don't want to bomb in the cancer clinic waiting room. Like that's, you might quit forever.
I once did comedy in New York at the VA hospital in the outpatient psych ward to women veterans. And, I'm old. I went through a lot of stuff. I forgave it. And so I'm up there talking about it like it's just butter. And I'm just up there talking about getting, Me Too'd in the 70s and laughing about it. And these women came up to me after and they're like, we didn't laugh. You didn't bomb, but we didn't laugh because it's not funny. And I'm like,
yeah.
Okay.
I'm just gonna go now. Like, yeah. What else can you say? Like, I'm sorry. No, that's what I was saying. Like, when you get into how you feel about the world, and I do have my opinions, and I will go. And I'm not going to take another, much more of your time because we already kind of. But everybody has to find their own way to what they feel is a safe little nook to be in. And you also, in my opinion, have to read the room and kind of know, like, okay.
That was definitely a miss on my part.
If I go here, it might be a high chance of precipitation that this is going to go.
I was so clueless, so young and green. And I was like, why didn't I think of that?
Right. I feel you.
Thank you so much, Alejandro
Thank you, Linda.
For coming on. And you're in Baltimore, Maryland, so anybody on the East Coast, you have no excuse now not to get to the place where where the Star Spangled Banner started. You got to get there because that's where he's at.
Oh yeah, come on down. We got flags and everything, fireworks and yeah.
I love Baltimore.
Yeah,
That's
it's
all
a
I know.
very historic place.
Yes, yes.
Very historic
Well,
place.
thank you so much once again. And anytime you want to come on and promote something you have coming up, please hit me up to come back on.
Okay, I will do that. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Come to Vegas.
Oh yeah, I'll do that.
Okay, bye.
Okay.
Bye.